Right. So, Prabhu, you had something to say?
No, I just initiated the recording. I hope everyone able to see the recording version right from your end.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Yeah, please continue.
Okay, guys. First of all, I would want to thank all of you for joining in. So we'll quickly start. We already know this session is going to be about the introduction to Salesforce business analysis and the demand for it in the current market, along with the career opportunities. And we'll spend a little bit of time about real-time use cases and all of that. Let me quickly share my screen. Please acknowledge once you're able to look at my screen. Pragati, you have any question?
No, by mistake that icon got
Okay.
clicked by my side.
No problem. No problem. Yeah. Is my screen visible?
It's loading. Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, guys, we'll quickly start. So before we get into this, I just want to add a few words. Right. So if you have any question at any point of time, feel free to stop me, and I'll be more than happy to kind of get your questions clarified. Right. So okay. This is the agenda of today's discussion. First I'll be talking about myself. I'll like, give a self introduction about myself, and I'll talk a little bit about my professional journey. Then we'll talk a little bit about the Salesforce ecosystem. What a Salesforce BA actually does along with their roles and what is expected out of the Salesforce BA in the industry today. And we'll also see how this industry has been growing and what are the different career opportunities, right? And we'll also see the important things that you will need to know as a BA. And we'll also talk about a little bit of real world scenarios. And then I'll tell you what challenge I have been seeing in the market since last 5 years. And I also have a training plan to try and see how to address this gap so that, there are a lot of Salesforce BAs who are effective and who are in par with what the industry actually expects. Okay. Are we good so far? Any questions? Let's try and make it a very interactive session. I don't want to make it, one way I speak, and I would also, I would love to hear from you folks as well.
Good to go. Now we don't have any doubts till you.
Okay. Sure. Okay. So this is about me. My name is Ramdev. I started my career in 2019 as a junior Salesforce business analyst. I've been involved in this industry for 6+ years as of now, and like this is the third. My current company is Tech Mahindra, and I'm working with them as a senior Salesforce business analyst. Right. So in all my 6 years, my career was all into Salesforce, and I started as a BA, and then it was all about a BA in my stream, if you see, right? And currently, I hold 8 certifications in Salesforce. Whatever you see here: certified business analyst, certified associate, admin, CPQ specialist, AI associate. All of this, I'm certified in these. And a few areas that I've been working is Sales Cloud and Community Cloud. I'm not certified, but I have a little bit of hands-on experience in these areas. Now, guys who are new to Salesforce, you might be wondering about what all of this is. So Salesforce basically has a list of certifications, right? See, if you want to be a developer and grow in that stream, you have a different set of certifications. If you want to become a BA, you have a different set of certifications. If you want to become a consultant, you have a different set of certifications. We'll be talking about all of that in detail during the actual training session. But here I'm just giving you an overview of what is actually happening in the Salesforce ecosystem, right? So I've predominantly worked with manufacturing industries. To be very precise, I've worked with a lot of consumer durables companies as such. Right? So that is all about my personal introduction and professional journey. Do we have any questions about me before diving into the details of Salesforce and business analysis?
You can also share your LinkedIn so that we can follow you there.
Sure, maybe we'll do it post the call. I'm sure all of you are the part of the WhatsApp group, right? Maybe I'll post it there. I've not added my LinkedIn thing to this deck, but we'll make sure that that is shared across after the call. Does that sound okay to you? Can you hear me, guys?
Yes, we can.
Hello.
Hear.
Okay. Sure. I was just thinking if there's a problem with the internet or something. Yeah. Okay. So we'll proceed, right? First, I wanted to add a few information about the Salesforce ecosystem, right? I understand a few people, on the call might be new to the Salesforce ecosystem. You might be a person who is pursuing college, or you could be a person who is in some other domain and trying to move to Salesforce, or you could be a person who has just started with Salesforce as a business analyst, or maybe a developer, right? So, wanted to add a few things about Salesforce ecosystem. As we all know, it is world's number one CRM provider. So when I say CRM, it refers to customer relationship management. So just think of a company that is selling cars, right? Just for an example. So they would need to store the details of all their leads, right? They would also need to plan how to target them to make the customer buy the car, and post the customer buys the car, probably if there's a service, right, then it flows in as a ticket or a case, and then they will need to resolve the problem, right? So for all of these aspects, uh, your CRM is a very powerful tool to handle all these business operations, especially sales and service. Right? You can relate this to any industry. Now, if you see a lot of companies, you know, everywhere in the world are adopting to Salesforce. And specifically, we see a very growing market in India. Like a lot of companies are adopting from some other CRM to Salesforce. So what I'm trying to say is they are becoming like a market leader. I have a little bit of details on the market share and all that in the next couple of slides. But just to kind of bring you up to speed on this, Salesforce is treated as the world's best CRM provider, right? And it's a cloud-based software company. Now, when I say cloud-based, right? So everything is stored in the server. Like if you're a company, you don't need to kind of host servers on your end, and like all of that is not your headache, right? Because when you have lots of data, you need servers to store them somewhere. I'm not getting into the technicalities of all of this, but this is a very basic concept for all of us to understand, right? So if you have data, you need to store them in servers. But when you use Salesforce, like you don't need to kind of worry about how you store your data. So it is all stored on the cloud, right? A person sitting in the US can also access Salesforce, and a person sitting in India also can access the Salesforce who belong to the same company, right? So servers are not localized. Storage and security, all of it is taken care of by the Salesforce team itself. Okay, so it's completely cloud based, and cloud computing is a concept that's been evolving since last few years. Okay, and here getting back to Salesforce, right? Uh, See, first of all, I would want to clarify one thing. A few people might already be aware of this. Salesforce is actually a product company who specializes in products like Sales Cloud, Service Cloud. They have like lots of products. We'll also be talking a little bit about the products today, right? Maybe when I talk about the last point, then I'll cover a little bit about the products, right? So what I mean to say is here for the third point, when I refer to say single and shared view of customer information, I mean to refer Salesforce as a product, right? So if you see, all the details of the customer will reside in one place, and that is your CRM, and that's Salesforce, right? So if you have all information in one place, you can take action. Let's say, for example, I would want to send an SMS to a particular customer. It can be possible, right? You might need to do a few integrations here and there. This you will get to understand as you grow along with Salesforce. As you learn the capabilities of Salesforce, you will be able to understand and appreciate each of these concepts. But for now, what you need to understand is more on the use cases side, where there could be a use case where I would want to send a message to a customer, an email to a customer, or it could be I would want to track the buying pattern of the customer, or in which part of the sale are we exactly in. So to give you an example, what is the probability of selling this particular product to a customer? Is it 20%? Is it 90%? right? So all of this Salesforce will be able to help you with. Okay, and it helps you optimize customer operations. Like it could be touch points to customers, it could be tracking whatever they do, right? All of this. And it also helps you to enhance relationships. Now, I would want to talk a little bit about this enhancing relationship, right? So if you see, the key of any business lies with the ability to enhance relationships, if I were to define it that way, right? See, customers should gain trust in you. That is when you will buy a car. Now, tomorrow, let's say you're buying a car from Mahindra, right? You buy it because you trust the brand. Now, that is very important when it comes to any sales or service or whatever, because if you have to sell your product, I'm talking from sales versus customers view, right? If you have to sell a product, you really, really have to build trust, and customers will have to be able to kind of, okay, it's a good brand, let me go with it, right? So that should be the thought process. So Salesforce will help you, enhance relationships and all that. And the last one is there are multiple SKUs offered by Salesforce. When I mean to say SKUs, here I refer to say multiple products, right? So we have sales cloud, service cloud, marketing cloud, commerce cloud, all of this. Now, I'm not getting into the details of each of these tools because that itself will become a big discussion each on its own, right? So I'm not getting into the details of each one of this, but for now, we need to understand that Salesforce caters to the market needs. Like they have different industry products as well. Today, if you see, they have non-profit cloud, they have financial services cloud, they have education cloud, they have manufacturing cloud, they have revenue cloud, all of this. They have something called loyalty cloud as well. No, I've not worked much with the loyalty cloud and other stuff, but pretty much if you are a BA in Salesforce, you will need to understand the basic use cases that can be done by different products, right? Uh, when I say products, it could be industry products, right? And it could be typical products like sales service cloud and all that. When Salesforce started, they started with sales service cloud, and then they started kind of getting into a lot of other products also to reach out to the market better and to target them. So that is all about I had about the Salesforce ecosystem. Now, moving forward, I also wanted to cover a little bit about what a Salesforce BA actually does. Right now, this, if you see, a Salesforce business analyst is a person who works on a particular project, and it is considered to be a business improvement role. Now, when I say business improvement role, it's not only technical, right? I would say it's more of consulting, more on the customer side, trying and seeing how to solve their real problem, right? So that is what makes this role unique, I believe, because the more consultative you are, better trust you build with a client and better value you add to the customer, right? All these are related to each other, right? So a business analyst is basically a problem solver, right? Customer will come and say, probably, my tickets are not flowing into the system properly, or it could be any kind of issue that the customers might come up with. And in a lot of instances in real time, what I have actually seen is customers do not know their problem statement. So they come and tell you a problem, and then when you discuss with them, when you kind of probe them with a lot of questions, you understand that the root cause of the problem is different, right? So the art of questioning and art of getting the right requirement from the customer is actually very, very crucial. I would say it is indispensable for a Salesforce business, right? So BAs, what we do is we talk to customers, understand their problem, and try and see how to improve their business process in the first place. That is what I mean when I say consultative, right? And then try and come back and see how to kind of uh, stitch these processes within Salesforce so that you know uh, the entire process is seamless for them. And we also have to focus a little bit on the UI and try and see how we can improve the system adoption and all that. No, those things come a bit later. Now, first thing that we need to understand is talk to customer, understand the problem, and you have to document it. Now, this documentation is a very, very important factor that's required for a BA, where I see a lot of gaps in the industry today. Even a person who has been working for, like, let's say 10 years also, right? I still see gaps in documentation, right? So whatever you speak to the client, right, should have or should be documented. That is when you're safe, because today customer says, I want this requirement, and tomorrow he changes the requirement. How do we even go and say, no, no, this is not what we aligned earlier, right? So you need some document to kind of prove that, okay, this is what we spoke, this is what was documented, this is where you gave me a sign off, and hence this is implemented, right? So documentation plays a vital role, right? And then you have to be an effective communicator. Your communication skills have to be really, really good. And you also have to be able to speak in such a way that you're able to talk to clients, you're able to talk to stakeholders, you're able to talk to maybe all the development team and your entire team for that matter, right? And you basically, as a business analyst, play a listening role between the client and stakeholders. It's more like a bridge, right? So client gives you business requirements, right? And then for you to kind of translate them into technical needs, your developer will not understand business terms. So you will have to put it in such a way, in a user story kind of a thing, and then you have to tell them, okay, this is what you have to do in a way that they understand, so that the implementation happens. Right. So this is more about a Salesforce business analyst's detailed role. And the last point that I see is basically if you talk about a Salesforce business analyst, they are involved right from pre-sales to discovery to implementation. Now, in big corporate companies, they don't expect you to do pre-sales because they have different teams to do that. But in my experience, what I've seen is all these startups and all, right? If you join as a Salesforce BA in a startup, they expect you to do pre-sales as well. So when I say pre-sales, the customer does not know any Salesforce. They will come and tell you a problem just like that, and then you will have to be able to tell them which product exactly go within Salesforce and what are the different features within the product that you will have to pitch it to them. So one thing that you need to be very clear on, if you go on Salesforce, the system is you need to be aware of what
Ram, your audio is not great, Ram. Anyone facing same issue?
Yes, same with me.
Yes, same with me too.
Yes, same here.
And we are not able to hear you now. Hello. Okay, let me check. Guys, give me a second. Okay, he might be rejoining back. Guys, some technical glitch actually, so he will be joining back. Give me a minute. Thank you.
Hello guys, sorry. Can you
Hey, I'm back. Welcome back.
oh,
What
sorry.
happened?
I closed the window unnecessarily. I mean, unknowingly, I closed the window.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, please continue. Share your screen.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay. So I think we were discussing involvement from pre-sales discovery to implementation, right?
Yeah, yes. And we are able to see your screen also.
Okay, sure. So what I was trying to say was a few startups, right? They expect you to do pre-sales as well, right? But in big corporate companies, if you see for pre-sales, they have a separate team and BAs are not expected to do. But it's a good thing for BAs to know as to how to drive pre-sales, right? So when I talk about pre-sales, it's more like a customer comes to you for the first time, right? They do not know anything of Salesforce. They do not even know which product in Salesforce to go with, maybe sales or service or maybe any industry cloud they don't know. So once we listen to their problems, we should be able to pitch them the right product and the right tool and the right features within the products to go with, right? So that is what is more of a pre-sales. And in pre-sales, you will only kind of discuss modules at a very high level. Like you will not get into the deal. Like for example, it can be something like I have to send an email to a particular customer, right? That can be a
Ram, again, your voice is breaking, Ram. Hello.
Can you hear me now?
But there is some disturbance, Ram, from your end.
Really?
Yeah, now
Okay,
you can.
give me a
Yes,
minute.
it's means in between the voice is getting.
Now it's fine.
Okay, is it better now?
Nah, yeah, it's
Okay,
fine now.
okay, probably I'm not closer to the mic. I'll check this. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So what I meant to say was in discovery, you will actually get into the details of the requirement. Like at least in pre-sales, you will at least finalize the modules at a high level, but in discovery, you will have to get into the details, right? So BAs will be involved in both. Typically in corporate companies, if you see, you will only be involved in discovery and implementation, like right from the project initiation to project closure. And sometimes it could also be that you're operating with a support mode, right? It could be T&M. When I say T&M, it's time and material. So basis the number of hours or basis the number of number of days that I spend with a client, the company will bill the client, right? So it could be in terms of any of it. So do we have any questions on the roles of a Salesforce business analyst so far?
No, sir.
Sorry,
No.
did someone say something? Okay, are we good or is it clear?
Good to go.
Okay. All right. I think I saw some question by someone on the group. Let me try if I can take it up. Maybe once we are done with the Salesforce business analysis part, I'll try to take it up. Right? Now, again, role of Salesforce BA, right? So, like what we already spoke, able to get to a level where you're able to act as a real consultant. Like, if you're doing a particular process this way, right, you should be able to kind of get into the details of it, try and understand why a particular process is followed, and try to see if there is a way to improve that. You should be able to pitch the benefits to the client as to, this could reduce your resources time, or this could reduce your cost, or whatever. If there is a benefit for the customer in changing the process, it's the role of a Salesforce BA to kind of do it. And this is something that we are seeing that today in the industry, there's a lot of gap. Now BAs are thinking that, okay, you tell me a requirement, I'll implement it. No, it doesn't work that way. Now you will have to probe them with questions. You have to get the actual problem, and then you should also tell them how you can kind of improve their business process. All of this comes under the role of a BA, right? Is my voice clear now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sure. Thanks for that information. Yeah. So moving on to the next one, understanding Salesforce features, right? Now, when I say Salesforce features, Salesforce has got different products. You need to understand the basics of all of it and the use cases of all the products, right? Now, these are available on the Salesforce website as well, but we'll try and see if we can kind of figure out an easy way to try and learn all the features and stuff, so that we are very good to go with driving pre-sales. Right? That is one important aspect. And ability to identify key business problems. Right? This is again related to point number one, where you should know as to why we are trying to kind of do a Salesforce implementation, right? So it could be, to improve the operations by the internal team, or it could be engaging clients better, right? Now, depending on the industry, depending on the project, depending on the requirements, you will need to be very clear on what problem you're trying to solve as a BA, right? And then I'm not spending much time on communication and documentation because we already spoke about this in the previous slide, right? Then the next one is to ability to jot process flows and help in betterment. Now, the very first thing after you talk to a customer, right? When you speak to them, they'll come and tell you, I have XYZ problem. But for you to kind of make sure that, or for you to prove that you have understood the problem the right way, it's always suggested that you draw a process flow chart where you're able to kind of clearly say, okay, this is step one, this is what your business happens. Now think of a scenario where you're going to a hospital, right? So first you register, then you go to the hospital, then you go to the reception, then you tell them that you have come, and then you meet the doctor, then you get the prescription, then you kind of go to the pharmacy, and then you get the medicine, right? So this is a very, very high level flow. Now for each of the business process, if you can break it down this way, right, and kind of explain what it is, that is when it will help you to kind of improve the business process, right? So before even getting into Salesforce, before even implementing it, or even before writing user stories, this is the first thing that you will have to do for two things. One, for you to understand what the actual scenario is. And the second thing is for customers to gain trust that you understand their problem. You should be more of a person who talks in the customer's perspective. And see, these lessons are something that we all learned the tough way, right? When I did my first project, we did not even do process flows. And then later we realized if we had done that, right, it would have helped me save a lot of time, my time and my customer's time as well. Right? So these are lessons that I would want all of you to take seriously note of and try and see how to implement this, right? So that is one important thing. And the next one is building quick prototypes to demonstrate the power of SF. Now today there are a lot of AI tools as well, right? I've seen something called Tango. Like let's say for example you want to make a user manual or something, right? You go to Salesforce, you hit new, right? The Tango system is intelligent enough to kind of say, you will not have to write your steps. The system is capable of writing steps. Today with AI, all this is actually happening. And I've also seen a few people using Scribe, right? So these are powerful tools that we'll need to be having. But here when I talk about prototypes, it's more like I put it in the perspective of, let's say you're talking to the customer and you're trying to sell Salesforce to them, right? So, or you're trying to prove what Salesforce can do for you, then you will have to show it in a visual manner, otherwise they will not understand. For this, there are a few tools like Figma and all of that. If you use them, you will be able to quickly pull out screens, quickly do the designing and try and explain how Salesforce will actually work once I implement. Right? And the next one is very important in terms of you explaining this to a developer, right? So customers most of the times are not technical. In my experience, I would say 90% of the times I have seen customers not knowing technical stuff. So you need to be able to kind of act as a liaison between the development team and the client and tell the development team as to what is actually supposed to be done. And problem solving, again, we were already speaking about this a little bit in the previous points. Project management skills are actually required because in startups, if you see, we will not have project managers and all that. It will just be the BA and maybe a few developers and maybe an architect if required, if the project is a little complex, right? So at that point of time, you will also have to take care of deadlines. You will have to take care of the sprint plan, whatever a PM project manager actually does, you will need to do that as well, and you will need to kind of own the implementation. I would put it in a simple manner that you will need to own the implementation where you will be responsible for everything, right? But if you come to corporates, right, we have separate project managers will be behind you to kind of do stuff. But it's always better that you have a little bit of project management skills as well, right? Then the next one is training and documentation, right? So this also plays a vital role. Once you develop the product, you need to build a training manual as well for the user. That is when I was saying you can use tools like Tango and all of that, right? So if you do that and you just go to the system and you just run the workflow on Salesforce, right? Go to this button, hit this field, save this, all of this, then that text that will come along with the images, you will not have to write. AI will take care of it today. Right? I mean, there are a few tools that are paid as well. I mean, I would say most of them are paid, but it is worth using it. Okay. And the last one is stakeholder management. So it's basically like sometimes, you must have seen scenarios that I posted on the group, right? So requirements might change, or they might come and say, this is not what I want, or a new person, some sudden day he comes and says, no, everything that you implemented is not right. My expectation is different, all of that, right? So you need to be more on the human side as well than the technical side. That's what I'm trying to say. So you will need to kind of manage them, keep the project's risk under control, and you will also need to ensure that you're able to implement things on time and it doesn't go beyond time. Okay. Are we clear? Was that too much?
It's clear, sir.
Clear.
Okay. You can stop me if you have any questions. I hope this adds a lot of value to your current thing. So I think let me take up this question. So started my career as a Salesforce QA and have been worked 3 years as a QA. What is this for me? Okay, so this is a good question. So what I understand is you're pursuing your career as a Salesforce tester now, right? So basically, what I would say is, see, when I talk about testing, right? Uh, I mean, it's not a bad stream to be in, but I would say the role of a BA has a lot more to do with than a Salesforce QA, right? Now, I would say QA is more like a BA does QA as well, but a BA does a lot more in startups. But in big corporate companies, if you see, for QA and all, we have a separate team. So if you want to kind of improve your career, if you want to be a person who directly contributes to the company's revenue and all of that, then Salesforce BA can be a better option for you. Okay. And the other advantage that you might have is you're not going to start from scratch because you already know what the product features because you have already been testing on Salesforce for some time, right? So you don't need to start from scratch. You already have got a good background. So where you will need to kind of enhance yourself is think of yourself as a front-facing customer role, right? If you can build yourself on the skills that are required for that particular role, then I think it would be an easy switch for you. Did that answer your question, Manzar? Manzar, are you there with the call? Yeah, he is dropped. I hope he listens back to this recording. Okay. All right, guys, should we proceed or do we have any questions?
We can proceed, sir.
All right. Okay, so these are some of the evolving industry trends today. Market leadership, right? So Salesforce is the biggest CRM partner, and growth in cloud computing trend is also something that we have already spoken in a few of the previous slides. So I'll try to get into this acquisition and expansion. Right? So if you see how Salesforce has been growing, right, I would suggest to all of you to follow, the Salesforce news on the web, right? I think even on the Salesforce website, you can subscribe to their articles and something, and they talk about all their acquisitions and expansions. Right? This adds real value to you because you should try and kind of understand as to why they are acquiring a particular product and why they want to expand. Right? For example, some of the recent acquisitions that I can think of is I think Slack is now under Salesforce. Tableau is also something that they acquired maybe 3-4 years back, right? So these are some of the big acquisitions, and recently they acquired some tool called Swift about a year back. I think it's a commission-based sales platform, right? So as BAs, what we will need to do is try and understand why this acquisition and expansion is happening, because probably Salesforce wants to get into that sector as well, right? So most of their success, if you see, I would say, is associated with acquisition and expansion. Like for example, the moment they bought Tableau, then they were trying to kind of improve their CRMA, and they today they are selling it as CRM analytics, right? That's an important thing that they're trying to sell in the market, where you give it some data, it will do the data analysis, and it will give you, respective results and output, probably with graphs and with predictions, with AI predictions and all of that, right? So for each of the product, there is a significant reason as to why they're trying to acquire. Now, if you read more information on the web, you will definitely try and understand as to why this is happening. And why this is important for us is because if Salesforce is acquiring a particular tool or a product today, we'll need to build ourselves, we'll need to kind of get that knowledge also, because as Salesforce partners, anyway, tomorrow it will come to our head, right? We'll be expected to do it someday. So that is something that you will need to be aware of, so that it kinds of gives you a heads up as to tomorrow what work can come to Salesforce partners. Right? So that is an important thing. And the Salesforce AI is something that is still an emerging concept. Today they have something called Agent Force, which has a lot to do with AI. Now in the back end we have the data. Now Agent Force is more like a chatbot that you can do with intelligence, right? It's not only a chatbot, it's much more than a chatbot that supports you with intelligence. Now, again, this is again a big stream to get into, but today Salesforce is putting a lot of focus on AI, a lot, right? As a part of that, they're also hosting an event in Bangalore on May 2nd and 3rd, I believe. It's called the TDX event for Salesforce AI. So it's more like for all the developers and BAs who are working in the Salesforce ecosystem, it's going to add a lot of value to them. Probably Salesforce is going to disclose a lot of new features or what they have in their roadmap and all of that. So this AI, if you see, is growing everywhere, not only in Salesforce, right? AI is going to be the future, right? Since Salesforce is also focusing on AI, we should also be able to kind of understand what are the different things that they can do with AI. Now, the next thing is partnerships and ecosystem. Now, if you see Salesforce, they have a huge partner ecosystem across the world. Even in India, if you see all the corporate companies that you're able to think of, right? Let's say HCL or maybe HCL, I'm not sure, but Wipro or Tech Mahindra or Capgemini or Accenture, all of them are Salesforce partners. And we have a lot of startups in the Salesforce ecosystem as well. We have a lot of companies in Chennai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, right? This trend is actually growing. So when I say partner company, we basically implement Salesforce for our customers. we get the product from Salesforce, but we take care of the configuration and customization and we deliver it to the customer. That is what partners actually do. And this partner thing is also something that we can talk for hours, right? They have different levels of partnership. Earlier, they used to call it silver, gold, platinum. Today, they have something like crest and all that. Like they have just renamed it from silver, gold to these names. And there's something called globally strategic. I think you'll have to be a platinum partner in more than 5 countries or something. Then they give you a globally strategic partnership. Now, if you get into that partnership, then customers who really want to implement Salesforce, right, when they search for you, right, then better chances of you getting a project if your partnership is platinum or something, right? So that is where we stand. Okay, so moving on. Uh, Here I wanted to mention the growth of Salesforce, right? See, since it was started like 2005-6 is when they started getting into the market, right? So from 2005 to 2024, Salesforce revenue has grown from 176 million dollars to 34.9 billion. Right? So that's a huge number, and the compounded annual growth rate is 32.1%. Just see how good or how well they've grown over the few years, and it's not a linear kind of a growth, it's an exponential growth where they're still growing, right? And in 2026 the projection is about $50 billion. So this is all about Salesforce as a product. Now why I'm talking about this, Salesforce as a product and Salesforce as a company, right? Why I'm talking about this is, if this trend actually grows, then the demands for Salesforce BAs and the demand for developers will still go up. That's evident, right? So just wanted to show you how it has grown in the past and it still has the potential to grow. Okay, and slowly we are seeing that a lot of Indian companies are also trying to get into Salesforce, which is a good thing for all of us. Okay. Oh. Okay. So Salesforce is like 73,000 employees around the globe, around the world, and more than 150,000 businesses use Salesforce today, and they hold 25% of the market share. Now, probably this term can be new to a few people here, right? So when I say market share, if there are 100 customers who needs CRM, 25 customers are using Salesforce, something like that, right? So that is what market share means. What is your presence in the market currently, right? And they have a huge partner ecosystem also. So having said all of this, I'm very sure that this is a growing stream, and demand for Salesforce BA is also is getting higher every day, but not as much as developers also, right? See, if you have 3 to 4 developers, you probably need 1 to 2 BAs depending on the complexity of the project and a lot of other factors, right? Depending on the budget that you have and all of that. But ideally, if you see 1:3 is the ratio that is there, and there's a good demand for Salesforce BAs in the market today. And finding a good resource is actually becoming hard, because I also used to do interviews, and what I've seen as a part of that is finding someone to the level of what we actually expect is getting tougher day by day. And the intent of the training is also to kind of help Salesforce BAs, to help them build themselves as to wherever the gap is. You will have to kind of build yourselves on that, so that you're ready to be deployed on a project, or you're ready to be taking the role of a Salesforce BA. Any questions, guys? I feel I'm talking more, and it will be nice if I have questions from a couple of you. I'm sure you will have. Just feel free to ask a question.
Yes, I have one query.
Yes.
When it comes to cost of Salesforce product giving to a client, then you contact with the Salesforce partner or support team.
I'll tell you. So there are two things, right? See, let's say I am working with a company who's a Salesforce partner. I am on the Salesforce partner side. Salesforce is on the other side. Client is on the other side. So there are three main entities involved here. Now, whenever it comes to cost, Salesforce, the way they do it is, for every product they have got license, right? If it is a sales cloud, then they charge it per license. They probably charge $20 per month per user, or 25, right? So it depends on the customer, it depends on the situation. So we do not know what the pricing would be, right? So we try to kind of get in touch with Salesforce, and the customer directly discusses the pricing with Salesforce for the licenses cost. But for the implementation cost, they will have to pay to the partner. That is where I make money as a partner. Does that make sense, or did I confuse you?
Okay, so he will give the license cost to the Salesforce and the implementation cost to the partner.
Exactly, correct. That's the way it works. Yes. But if you see a few customers, I'm also seeing this as a trend today. They have a few they have a few Salesforce admins and developers on their side also. But typically, how this works is they come to a partner for them to get all their stuff developed. Right? So that's the way it works, and that is what is making Salesforce partners survive in the ecosystem.
Okay, so in the call meeting itself, if he has been converted to your potential customer, you do it on your behalf, getting the license and all everything from the Salesforce. If he can't do it by him, you do it by yourself. Means it can be via either one of the situations, right?
It can be any of the scenarios, right? See, I'll tell you different scenarios that happens in this ecosystem today. There can be a scenario where Salesforce only sells the product to them, and then they come to you for requirement gathering. So basically, you are put in touch with the client only after Salesforce interacts with them and the cost and all is finalized for licenses per se. That could be one route where you get a customer. The other route that you can think of today is a lot of these companies have started hiring inside sales team. Like let's say I'm a Salesforce partner, I will have 4 people sitting in my company to do sales. Then I talk to them first, then I put in touch with them I put them in touch with Salesforce. Now the point here is any cost, it is better that Salesforce communicates to them for the licenses cost. Implementation cost, you directly discuss that with your client. Simple. It could be either ways to answer your question.
And what about the quotation? Who does the implementation quotations?
Implementation quotation is something that we only do, partners only do, right? See, for example, let's say if I'm
Yes,
going to
but
charge.
BA only make it, right?
Good question. In startups, what I've seen is BAs typically own it, right? And BAs talk to the solution architects, technical architects, developers, the entire team, and then they come up with the efforts. Like for example, there's a systematic way to do this, right? Now, once you get to know the high-level modules, for each module, it's going to take so many hours. Then for testing, it's going to take so many hours. Then you will have to deploy it from, let's say, from development to QA, QA to UAT, UAT to pre-prod, pre-prod to prod, depending on the number of platforms that we have. A few people may not be able to follow what I'm speaking now, but it's okay. Like we have actually planned to cover that in detail during the training session. But for now, all that you need to understand is if I develop something in a particular platform, there are other platform staging environments and all of that for me to test it to make sure that this is going to really work for my customer finally, and then only I'll go live, right? So getting back to the original question, for each and every module, I'll have to sum up the efforts and then say probably this is going to take 1,000 hours. Then what is the charge? What is the per hour cost that I'll have to charge the customer? And I'll have to come up with an estimate. As simple as that. This is how fixed bids actually work, right? So to answer your question, BAs are expected to do it, but in large enterprise organizations, I have seen that BAs give inputs and PMs take care of it. But it depends on the project, it depends on the company and all that. But it's good for BAs to know this because they might be expected to do this. As simple as that.
Yes. So based on the modules, you set the hours and the cost. So now
Not only
coming
the
to
modules.
next
Sorry to
question.
interrupt.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Not only the modules, right? Within the module, there will be, okay, this is what I'm actually going to do, right? You will have to break it down to that extent before coming up with the estimate.
Yes.
That is when the
Yes.
deviation will be
Yes.
less in the future. Okay, go ahead. You had another question.
Yes. Coming to the next question, aligned with the same previous question, that if we are running ahead of time or if we are running late with the project
Okay.
aspects and sprints, then the cost cutting is done or not after that, means by the client side if he tells such things. then how you handle it? Did you cut the cost, or whatever the fixed cost is there, that is fixed, if it is delayed or if it is running ahead?
See, it's a very generic question, Pragati, and there are like no right answers to this. But I've seen such scenarios happening in the industry where where the customers might say, no, no, like let's say I am going to charge you for 100 hours, like assume a particular maybe 20, $30 per hour, I don't know, like, right? Something like that. And the customer says he's not ready with that budget. Now, internally, what you will need to see is if I reduce one or two resources, will I be able to deliver it in the cost that the customer wants me to do? That is one aspect that you will look at, right? So if you talk about cost cutting, you can do that, reducing the number of resources, reducing the number of developers involved, or probably if you have a separate team for testing, you can think of, removing the testing team altogether and BA can take care of the testing. As long as it's not a very complex testing scenario and all that, right? If things are very complex, you will need to have people for testing as well, people for development. It's not that one person can do everything, right? So that is a call that you will need to take internally. But I am aligned with you on the fact that this is something that we have seen this happening in the industry. And the first step companies look at is to reduce the work, reduce the number of work resources for that particular project, right?
Yes, I want to know only how we handle this situation, right? From
Okay.
if the client gives us this input, then how, as a BA, we handle this situation?
First of
Because
all,
you have to talk with the PM and all, and then come up with the solution, right?
correct. So, reducing resources is one key factor. Some of the other factors that you can also look at is basically, see, if I were to reduce the headcount, that shouldn't lead to a compromise in quality. If that is there, I sometimes tell my client that, okay, with this budget, I might not even be able to deliver because I should not deliver something that you will not use, right? So, all those basic factors you will need to factor in. Unless you compromise quality, this little bit of restructuring we can still do.
Okay.
Did that answer your question, Pragati?
Yes, yes.
Or when it comes to cost, something that you can also do is basically try and say, okay, so if I have to implement all these 10 modules, it's going to cost you so much. Today I'll implement 7, the rest 3 I'll implement later. This is also something that you can try with your customer to see if you're able to convince them. There are different strategies, right? What I'm telling you is probably only one or two. Like if we talk about the detailed scenarios, there can be many other options that can come up with that we can deal with. I hope that that makes sense to you. Right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I think Rahul had a question. Rahul, do you want to go ahead?
So not a question, but I saw like same scenario in my project, and we approach with a shared responsibility.
Okay.
Like, some of the responsibility was delegated to client, for example, testing, documentation, for which they had resources,
Okay.
and we continued with the other part, and thus we were able to reduce the cost by offboarding these people.
Great.
So
But sometimes what happens is if you make them do it right, we cannot guarantee that everything will be captured 100%. You will also have to review it, and it becomes your headache also, right? At one point of time. I mean, that is my experience. Probably in
yeah,
your
it does. But for example,
yeah.
training, documentation, Spanish translation, we left it to them. Right?
Okay.
So they are the one who are running it, and we are supporting them. But that reduce our hours at least at some level.
This is a good approach as well. You see, what I feel is if clients had those good resources from their end, so it's basically like delegating 50% of the BA's responsibility. That's what you're trying to get to, right? Or delegating 50% of your testing responsibilities. If the clients had the ability to do it, well and good. This approach might have definitely worked. I'm agreeing with you on that, Rahul.
And this approach also works when we are migrating from one vendor to another. Like, oh, like when we
Very
migrate.
when you migrate, you will definitely need to do this. I think this is the best way if you're talking about migration, because let's say you're a new vendor, you do not know what is there in the system. They will need to tell you, they will need to give you the documents for you to go through and understand it. Anyway, we cannot be doing it. That has to come from the client side. Rahul, did you say something? Did I interrupt? Sorry.
No, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay. So any other questions that we can take? Okay, so if you're all good, I'll quickly move to my presentation again. And so here are the different opportunities that I wanted to talk about, right? So basically, if someone wants to get into Salesforce, the first thing that we ask them to do is a Salesforce admin. And then they can decide whether they want to get into the developer stream, they want to get into the consultant stream, they want to become a BA. Right? So let's talk about this third stream, which is where we are now, right? So as a Salesforce BA, you will need to have basic admin skills as well. Earlier, if you see, if you have to be certified as a Salesforce business analyst, it's a certification program run by Salesforce. Salesforce admin was a prerequisite, but recently I got to know that admin is not a prerequisite for a business analyst for certifications per se, but still it will be better that if you know admin concepts, because when you talk to customers in real time, you will need to know the basic Salesforce features at least. Otherwise, you will not be able to have a fruitful conversation. So you will have to do your admin and Salesforce BA side by side, I would say. And then later, if you see, you can become a project manager who will manage, like, let's say 3-4 projects, and each project team will have a business analyst, developers, and a solution or a technical architect, right? So that's the way in which we are able to foresee growth. And this is a screenshot from FXRs only, right? So, and then you become a then you become a program manager. Program manager is much more than a project manager, where you basically manage a lot of things. So you're basically the manager for the project manager, something like that, if you think of it in that perspective. And if you also see, I have also seen a few BAs dive from Salesforce BA stream to a product owner stream, and this also has got a good demand in the market, right? But business analyst as such, if you ask me, it's a project improvement role only. So the suggested approach is this, but still, if you would want to diversify a little bit, it is still possible. From BA, you can become a product owner. Product owner is next level to a BA, where think of a scenario where you're working with the Salesforce company, and let's say they're trying to build a product, you're giving them inputs on why don't you build this particular product, right? And then you maintain backlogs, and then you kind of see what you can do to make the product better and all that. So that also gives you an entry thing to look at a product owner and uh, a product owner in the long run. So these are the different career opportunities within Salesforce. Now, on the other side, if you see, you can also become a Salesforce consultant. But in my belief, in all the startups that I have at least seen, right, they expect you to be Salesforce consultants and business analysts as well. They are not seen as two different roles. But of course, in big companies like Deloitte and other stuff, this is still a difference. But ideally, I would suggest you to build your knowledge on both of it, because this, without the consultative ability for a Salesforce BA, it's very hard to survive in the demanding market today. Okay, so I would probably treat both these streams as one. And the other stream, if you are more interested in writing codes and all that, then you become a developer, then you become a senior Salesforce developer, then you become a lead, and then you become an architect. There is a very good demand for Salesforce architect also in the market. Like, it's very, I've seen a lot of companies struggling to hire architects, and like that's very hard to figure out architects in the market today. There's a very good demand for this. We are literally seeing this in the market today. But ideally, talking about BA, there is a good demand for BAs as well, right? And in the next slide, I'm also trying to cover what salaries you can expect. For entry level, you can expect 4 to 8 LPA, right? For mid level, 3 years to 5 years, it's between 8 and 14, and for senior level, it's between 14 to 24. Now, this is basis the discussion with a couple of my friends, a little bit of research on Google and all that, and this is something that's really happening in the market. What the figures that I've given you here is something that is really, really possible. You can also go a bit beyond the numbers mentioned here, depending on the company or depending on the urgency in the project. This is just a range, but this is something that is actually there in the market today. Okay. But I've also seen a few people going beyond 24 and up to 30. But again, it's not like for it actually depends on a little bit of luck and the company that you're working with, the cruciality of the project and all that. Companies can go to some high level, but this today, if you see, I would say there are a lot of layoffs everywhere. Even Salesforce has laid off a lot of people. Some few, I think 1 to 2 months back, I saw a big layoff news in Salesforce. But these things are still happening because of the evolution of AI. And if you're not updated, if you're not performing well, they usually do a performance review, and then the bottom 5% they just wash out, right? So all these kind of things will still happen, but I still feel that there's a good demand for a Salesforce business analyst and an architect in the today's Salesforce ecosystem. Okay. Does someone have something to add here? Maybe people in the Salesforce ecosystem might want to share something. Are we good to go, guys? Someone wants to say something?
Like one question.
Yes, Shikhar, tell me here.
I'm also in this year system for past 11 years. So I'm new to Salesforce. So can you able to tell something about how get into Salesforce? But I'm a student of Prabhu, so preparing for
Okay.
that to get into Salesforce. I'm having
Ideally,
already a CRM experience in Zoho and HubSpot for past 11 years.
okay, good, Shikhar. So, see, what I would suggest to you is if you want to get into the Salesforce ecosystem, right? The first thing that you will need to kind of decide is, do you want to get into the development stream or do you want to be on the business side? Now, this is a decision that you will have to take. If you want to become a developer, this call, what we are speaking about, might not be related to you. So you will have to get into PD1, PD2, and then you will have to do those certifications, and then you can also do a few projects on Trailhead, right? This is something that you can start with, and you can start applying for Salesforce companies as a developer. That is one stream that you can look at. The second stream that I would suggest, or the important stream that we're talking about here, is basically the business analysis. Then what you will need to do is, see, since you're saying you're new to the ecosystem, you should know the product first. So you should know the nitty-gritties of Salesforce, how the admin works, how different configurations can be done, for what all requirements will we need coding. All of this you will need to kind of get a good grasp on this. So I would suggest you to spend some time on this training, and probably you can take up the admin training. And I think Prabhu offers admin training as well, right? So that is something that you can opt for, so that see, since you have already worked with HubSpot and other CRMs, you should probably understand basic business process and all that. The only thing that where you will need to spend time is on how different or what is different in Salesforce. If you do that, then I think you can start applying for companies that have partnered with Salesforce. I think Prabhu is already posting a few openings with Salesforce, right, everywhere. You can just keep a
Yes.
track of it and you can apply, and then from there you can get your career started. Right? If you're happy with, we can have a one-on-one call on the details of what you should actually be doing. Probably we can come up with a
Sure.
personalized action plan, and then we can take it forward.
Sure. Thanks.
I know my answer was on a very high level, but I'll be happy to discuss this one-on-one.
Sure.
Okay. Any other questions from anyone before we proceed? Okay, then I'll quickly proceed. Okay. So here are a few myths that BAs need to understand, right? BAs don't need to write code. Like it's good that if you know, but you're not expected to write codes as a BA, but the basic technical knowledge is essential, right? And BAs focus more on business needs, while admins handle system configuration, right? But if you ask me, I would say BAs should know admin also, a little bit of admin at least, if not the details. Only then they'll be able to have fruitful conversations with the client. This is one. And if you're a pure business person with no admin knowledge, it might be a little hard for you to deal with the customer because you need to know what Salesforce is capable of doing. Right? So that is something that is important. And you have to understand Salesforce capabilities. Now, a lot of BAs think I don't even need to understand the different products in Salesforce. That is not what I need to do, but that is wrong. So basically, you at least the high level features and use cases you need to understand so that you're able to have a conversation with the customer with good confidence. Right? And BAs are involved right from discovery to implementation and all the stages. There's a common misconception that BAs are only involved during requirement collection. No, that is not the case. So they are involved right from discovery, right from gathering requirements until delivery and post delivery also. If there are issues, if there are adoption issues and all of that, then they're involved. And one important thing is the BAs should understand insights. They should also be able to do a little bit of reporting and data analysis on Salesforce. Like in Salesforce, if you see for people who have worked with Salesforce, they would already know you can build a report and a dashboard on Salesforce. But for all the simple things, I can't expect a developer to do it. Basic things, I should also be able to do it so that I understand those insights and tell the customer as to what is actually happening. Now, to give you a better example, let's say I'm working with a customer where we are dealing with a ticketing management system. Probably, if I'm a BA, I should know on a day-to-day basis what is the average number of tickets that I get. What is the for which category am I getting more tickets, right? So probably I can go and tell my customer that okay, boss, you're getting a lot of issues with related to quality, so better check your product, right? So something like that, right? Useful analysis. Now that is also powered by AI and all of that today with Salesforce, but that comes with a cost. But still, you should be able to kind of analyze all of this and tell the customer as to what they should actually do. No, even before implementing, you have to be consultative. While implementing, also you have to be consultative, but there you will have to slightly reduce it because once the requirements are finalized, if you start being consultative, they'll come up with new requirements, and that will blow up the timeline and all to do that, right? So be consultative, before we start the project, and once we deliver the project, also you can be a little bit consultative and tell them what be the few kind of improve their Salesforce system, as well as you get a lot of inputs on how to improve their process also once we go there. So that is one thing. And industry knowledge is something that is, if you're talking to a company that is selling cars, you need to know the market, a little bit about the market, but you also need to know, how this industry basically works, who are the different stakeholders involved, what are the common business practices that their competitors do, all of this you need to be aware of. And most importantly, where I see a gap with a lot of BAs is BAs are using technical words to the customers. If you go and say, I want to convert a lead, nobody's going to understand that, right? You will need to use industry terminologies. Probably they might be used to the word called prospect, right? Then use that word, right? Because both lead and prospect is the same, but in Salesforce we call it leads. But still, when you talk to customers, make sure that you're able to communicate in the lingo that they understand. And this is something that I've seen a lot of BAs making mistakes here. Okay, and then BAs help define their needs by asking the right questions. I think this is also something that we already spoke about. So I'm quickly moving on to my next point. Soft skills and problem solving is like soft skills like communication and problem solving are very, very vital. So BAs will have to be a good expert on all of these. And beyond documentation, BAs drive process improvements, training, testing, and change management. So when I say training, it could be related to training documents. It could be related to training the important people on the customer side. Now, let's say you're doing an implementation for 1,000 users, right? You can't keep training all the 1,000 users, but you can train the people who will train those 1,000 users on the client side. So something of those kind, coming up with a training manual and all of that is something that is expected out of a BA. Testing is again, in a few companies it is yes, in a few companies it is no. But if the company asks us to do, then we are liable of this also, right? So this is something that is there. And change management is more like, let's say we have implemented Salesforce, we have gone live, but your adoption takes ahead. Nobody's even using the system. They are still used to their old style, legacy system. then you will need to see what to do to kind of improve the adoption, how to facilitate the change so that they find the transition to be very easy, right? So BAs will have to give inputs and try and support all of these activities as well. Okay. So here are a few business scenarios that I've included. So maybe we can, like all of you can kind of give in your inputs here, and our real training program will be focusing more on these, because see, this is something that nobody teaches you, right? But these are something that you will learn over the course of time with difficulty. But here, what I'm trying to do is to kind of give in all the scenarios that I have faced, so that tomorrow chances are more that you might also face this particular thing, right? So I would want you to kind of think about it right now so that it becomes easier when you handle, because like a lot of BAs like me, right, we have learned all these lessons the hard way, and what we are trying to do is we'll try and tell you how to deal with this, and you can also give in your inputs, right? Because there's no correct or wrong answer for this. It is just the way in which we deal with things so that we are able to solve problems, as simple as that. So would we quickly want to go ahead? I think we are towards the end of the presentation, right? We can discuss this, and then I have mentioned a few challenges that I like literally see in the market, and based on these challenges, we have come up with a training plan. That's all. So those are the things that we get to speak, but that's not much to cover. So we can quickly go with these questions, like how do you ensure development team understands the requirements the right way? So as a BA, we understand that we'll have to translate business requirements to the development team and tell them how to implement it, right? So but most of the times what I have seen in reality is what I tell them is not something that is implemented, and when I test, I see everything to be different. That is when I understand there is an understanding gap from the developer side. Even though we give them user stories, even though we give them documents, these kind of misses seem to consistently happen in the project day, right? So does someone want to add your answers? Has someone come across the situation in the past?
Yes, while working in a company, they BA make the BRDs and FRDs, and they directly
Correct.
send to the development team, right? So
Correct. Correct.
instead of that, if they take a first meeting and also share what is how are the things to be done, and how this BRD looks like, and what all is your understanding, then it may be more clear to the developer while implementing. Because when after the implementation, BA comes to the developer that this was not to be done.
Okay, got it. This is something that can work. Do we have any other thoughts on this from anyone else? Do you want to kind of take a turn to answer this question?
Is actually initially when the BA undergoes, like when he creates all the requirements and all, when he's ready with all the documents, maybe he can
Mm-hmm.
share the same with the developers, and definitely it would help when there is a session that takes place between the developers and the business analysts to give an early vision of what the requirements are, and uh, this will actually also help the business analyst to understand if there is anything that is being missed from his side, from the technical aspect as well as functional aspect, as per
Okay.
the new requirements.
Got it. Thanks for this. I think this can also help to an extent. But something that I have been doing in a couple of my previous projects, right? I used to make the developers write the test scripts. That is way too much, not for all projects, but depending on the quality of the scripts that they come up with, right? I will get to understand what they understood. Or if we don't have so much of time, right? The easiest way to be would be I make them kind of do a reverse KT to me as to what they understood. Now I'll tell them, hey boss, assume that you are a business analyst. I am the client. Tell me what you understood. That's all. Then
Okay.
then if the explanation is done in a proper way, then I get to understand that, see, there are again a lot of things, right? And there can be art of questioning also. Like, so, like, I'm just throwing my thoughts. I'm not trying to say this is right, this is wrong. Probably all of these when put together can work well. That's all. That's all I'm trying to say. Okay.
Actually, like
Okay.
I am into CBL CRM. So when initially in my initial days of I was a tester as well as a developer. So in my initial days when I was a tester, we used to have early vision sessions where both the developers and testers were included. It's like when it is a very huge application, not all the
Okay.
developers know every functionality. So
Okay.
testers were also included in order to give their suggestions as well whenever the code or the functionality is being changed at different parts of the application.
Mm, sure. Sure. I
Yeah,
think that also works. I think
yeah.
since we are but towards the end of the presentation, I would want to cover up quickly the other things as well. So we quickly move on to the next question. So here, the next question that I've included here is, let's say we are talking about a BRD and we have received an approval from the client, but there's one basic requirement that we had missed in the BRD. Client also did not realize it. You also did not realize it. Got the approval. Everything is done. Now in 10 days, you're going to, right? So in this situation, how, as a BA, how would you handle? Now, a few things, right? See, we can, it's not that you will have to come up with an answer during the call only. Probably we will share the recording with you, right, after this call. Like you can take these questions, think through it, and also share your inputs on WhatsApp, and then we can probably have a very fruitful conversation on the on the WhatsApp channel as well. Okay, am I clear? So, but if someone has something to
Your
add, we can
question
keep
was in between break, which we didn't understood your question. After 10 days, something, then
Oh,
afterwards your voice collapse.
okay, okay. So I'll repeat. I'll repeat. So am I audible now? Is it better?
Yes, yes, now you can talk.
Okay. So what I was saying is, in the BRD, you missed a very basic element, right? You also did not realize it. Client also did not realize it. Clients gave you sign off. Development is all completed. From 10 days from today, you're going to go live, and client, while testing it, he got it as to how the simple thing was missed. As a BA, how would you handle the situation? This is my question.
Yes, this is a very critical situation.
I've been across this situation multiple times, and I learned all this the the tough way. But yeah, but these things are can it can really happen in any project. It should not happen. You should try your best not to happen. But if it still happens, you should be able to kind of do it, right? So what we can do is I'll just explain the questions here. Probably if you all can take your time post this call and write your inputs on the group, right? Then it'll really help. We can have a kind of a two-way conversation on WhatsApp. Let me quickly brief the other questions as well. Just throwing your thoughts. There's no right or wrong answer. We're just trying to kind of improve, and I'll also give you my perspective on these questions. Right? And during a discovery session, stakeholders provide conflicting requirements. Like let's say there are 10 people on the client side, right? Each person gives you different requirements, right? How would you even handle this? Right? Because these things can really happen. And while gathering requirements, you notice that stakeholders are unsure about their actual needs. They don't even know what you're supposed to do. And this also is a pattern that I've seen with a lot of manufacturing industries, to be very precise. Right? They don't even know what they want. They just come and say, do this, do that, but they will not even be able to articulate a problem statement. A few companies I've seen, with this pattern. So again, as a BA, how would you handle this, right? And then a requirement was misunderstood, and then the development team built a solution that does not match the business needs. Right? Then how would you resolve the situation? Like you cannot openly agree to the customer also that we have done a big mistake. At the same time, you can't hide the complete thing from the customer. So how will you manage and balance relationship without losing customers' confidence, right? So these are a few things that probably you all can take a note of, think through, and kind of give me or share with me what your understanding is, right?
Yes, and in this fifth point, also one point comes when you have misunderstood the development and the number of hours you have taken for that development and whatever cost has been included. That is also a major comes in major role of the revenue of that company. Means the client, if the client is not happy with the solution, you will require more hours to add, right, in the development team. Then how you compensate with this thing?
True. Yes, maybe I would really appreciate if you can include and share on WhatsApp, maybe on the group, right? We can discuss there. Right? Now, let me move to the next few things. These are the challenges that we have identified, like I have identified as a PA in the market, and these are things that can help you all kind of improve, right? See, requirement gathering difficulty. A lot of BAs are struggling here, and then eliciting and documenting requirements. Proper documenting practices are not followed everywhere, right? And then adapting to agile and changing environments, and then nobody is aware of what those real world use cases are. They are not able to tackle stakeholders strategically. They're struggling with business process mapping. Like if you like a lot of BAs I've seen when I used to train BAs within my company, right? With business process mapping, like they are not able to kind of put it in a flowchart and explain what the business process is. And everywhere writing effective user stories and acceptance criteria, I see a big gap. And not all BAs are aware of all the tools that are available for BAs, and they have a very limited knowledge on the different products in Salesforce, right? And I also see gaps with resume building and interviews also. A lot of people do not have hands-on experience, but thanks to Trailhead, it can give you hands-on experience to some extent at least, right? And then a lot of BAs don't understand what Salesforce limitations are and customizations options. Now, with all these challenges that we have, or whatever we have spoken, right? I have tried and mapped it to different modules that we have for training, right? So I'm going to structure my training this way, right? Introduction and career vision, Salesforce methodologies and role-based responsibility. These are modules, and for all the modules, to I've related it to how to address a particular challenge. Like for example, the Salesforce methodology and role-based responsibility, adapting to agile and changing requirements, right? This pain point can be mitigated better, I would say, right? BAs will be able to handle this in a much better manner. Similarly, role of a Salesforce business analyst, right? So they do not have access to real world use cases. Like we were discussing a few things in the previous slide, right? We would discuss more of these in the actual training sessions planned. And ability to tackle stakeholders also you will try and understand, because see, when we talk about these scenario based questions, you will obviously gain this. Now, so this is how we have structured how we can relate the pain points that we have identified versus the training module that we're going to deliver, right? So this, if you see, it also includes documentation, a little bit of solution visualization. So I will not be briefing admin concepts and all in detail, but it will be an overview of what Salesforce can do for you, right? And essential tools, like whatever tools we actually use in the industry, a lot of people do not know. So that I thought we could cover it in a separate session. Then a separate session will be scheduled for UAT also, right? So wherever I was able to relate to the pain point I've related. And if you see the last 2 points, right? Lack of hands-on experience and understanding Salesforce limitation and customization options. I understand this is a gap, but in the current training, I'm only trying to address the first 9 gaps. I'm being very honest and transparent with you on that, because 10 and 11, we will not be able to cover it in the next couple of training sessions that we planned. We'll see later. But this 1 to 9, this is more important for a BA, and for all of this, we have mapped it to the training modules. And if you see here, for each of the module, right, I've also mentioned when I talk about introduction and career vision, it will be a little bit of introduction to Salesforce, growth potential of CRM. I mean, like most of it, like what we discussed today was from the first session, basically, right? But I didn't brief you on the details of this role of business analyst versus Salesforce BAs. Why should you become a Salesforce business analyst? All of this we'll be talking about in detail. This will be the first day's training, session. And the second day we will be talking about, what are the different roles. Today it was again on a very high level, but I'll kind of break it down for you as to what each of the roles do, how does software development lifecycle works. And you also need to know a little bit of agile methodology and Scrum basics. Like a lot of people do not have this knowledge, which is essential. So we have planned for this as well. And the third day, if you see a role of a business analyst, what hard skills, soft skills do they need? How do they understand business process? Right? And BA's involvement in pre-sales and discovery. Today, again, it was on a very high level, but during the training session, we'll try and see what are supposed to be done during pre-sales, what are supposed to be done during the discovery, and all of that. Fundamentals of requirement gathering and documentation. So what are the different types of requirements that can come in? How do you how do you groom your backlogs? How do you prioritize in case there are multiple requirements, right? All of this will be covered in this session, right? And then for documentation, I'll also throw some light on what is RTM, because this is something that like most of the times, like let's say client gives you a requirement and requirement keeps changing all the time, right? Then you will need to be able to say initially this is what we spoke, then this turned to this, then that turned to this, that entire history of changing requirements you will need to document in requirement traceability matrix. And we'll also see how BRD and FRD is written. I understand that different companies have different practices, but I'll tell you the best practice that I have seen so far, and we'll talk about all of these, right? And solution visualization, like I already told you, a little bit of standard custom object automation flows, but it will not be a detailed admin training as such, because Prabhu is already, has a separate training for admin. So we have made sure that the things that are discussed during this session for admin is really minimal, right? And focusing more on the business side and other stuff. And I'll also give you a few integration use cases, because as a BA, you need to understand that as well, right? And then essential tools for BA. So we'll be talking about Jira, Confluence, Azure DevOps. These are all the tools that I've seen people using in the BA ecosystem so far, right? And then we'll also talk about what UAT is. A few people might already be aware of the basics if you already know Salesforce, or if you've already worked with other CRM systems, you might be knowing the basics. But still, we will try and get into the details of what this actual UAT process is, and we'll also understand how test cases are written and how to create testing strategies and all that. And then overview of Salesforce products. So this is introduction to key products and SKUs. Like we were talking about different industry products, Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, right? Like all their high level use cases, we'll try and discuss with an example, probably with which kind of company can you sell which product, right? And we also need to know different sandboxes. Today, if you see, I was speaking about, development, QA, UAT, production, and all that, right? So different sandboxes and the deployment process on a high level, we'll get to understand, and how to manage projects and how to, release from one platform to the other. Again, these are technical, but I will only cover up the areas where BAs need to be aware of, right? So that is one thing. And then we will end up with career paths, like we can do some kind of personalized action plans and stuff. And then we'll also tell you the best practices for excelling as a Salesforce BA and current trends and future role of AI. If you see, I've spoken a little bit of this in today's presentation from my actual training plan. So we'll speak about all this in detail. Right? And then what I'm also planning is we can give you a case study, and then you will probably write user stories and you will come up with a solution design. We can try and spend some time on this so that you get a real-time exposure to what is actually happening or how things will be when you start your career, right? And then a personalized action plan. And I've also planned for I can give you a few resume building tips. I mean, like I'll help you build a resume, but I'll give you a few keywords. I'll give you some inputs on structuring, and then you can work on it. And then I'll also help you with a mock interview so that you're ready to be hired as a Salesforce business analyst. This is all that my training program includes. So I've given you a detailed walkthrough of what all I'll be covering in different sessions. So this is where we stand. That's all I had from my end. I should thank all of you for your time to join. I would really suggest you to kind of look at this, take this up a bit seriously, because this has a lot of potential, and I can vouch for it. So, any questions from anyone?
It was a very informative session. Thank you for your time. And we will also brainstorm and also give our feedbacks on the questions which you shared as a BA, the scenarios
Sure. Sure.
on that workshop group, right?
Yeah, same. We have a
Sorry?
separate group for
Yeah.
a business analyst.
Okay.
So I will share in the our main group in the WhatsApp. Any other open queries, guys? Okay, great. So once again, thank you, Ram. So you have been shared a lot of insights and your knowledge through the experience which you have been secured. Somehow it will be able to deliver and able to learn people whoever joined here. Thank you once again, people who joined here. Okay, it's not going to be in here, so we will be keep having this kind of webinar and workshops for a business analyst point of view, wherein we have been planning the training program also. That is, we are going to be update all the details into the social apps in our WhatsApp group as well, so you can keep touch. And regarding the use cases, whatever we discussed here, so we will be keep continue into our dedicated WhatsApp group. So you can feel free to ask all much what are the questions you will be having from your end. So we will be try to address everything.
Okay. So, do we have any other questions to take up, or are we good to wrap up the call?
Okay. So thank you once again, everyone. A special thanks to Ram. Catch you everyone in another session. Have a nice
Thanks for
weekend.
this.
Bye bye.
Guys, one request: if you all can share feedback for the session on the group, maybe just feel free to write your thoughts about it. It could be anything positive, anything negative, whatever you think. Feel free to kind of share those with me. I'll try and make get to kind of improve things as we go forward, depending on your feedback. Right?
Sure,
Guys,
we're
is that
looking forward your
Sure.
feedback, guys.
Yes, sure.
Thank you.
thank you
Thank
all.
you, everyone.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you,
Bye bye.
sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.